And while U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance will land in New Delhi shortly for his 4-day visit to India, accompanied by his wife Usha and their 3 children, Vance's trip is the first by a sitting U.S. Vice President to India in over a decade. Now, the Vance family boarded Air Force 2 for India from Rome. His sons, Evan and Vivek, waved toy swords as they boarded with Second Lady Usha Vance, while the Vice President J.D. Vance was seen gently carrying his sleeping daughter, Mirabelle. The aircraft is expected to land in New Delhi at approximately 9:30 a.m. local time on Monday. Now, ahead of his arrival in India, hoardings welcoming Vance have been put up near the airport and near the U.S. Embassy in New Delhi. Vice President Vance will be accompanied by at least 5 senior U.S. officials, including representatives from the Pentagon and the State Department. On Monday evening, the U.S. Vice President and his wife will meet with Prime Minister Narendra Modi for talks and a dinner at his official residence. The discussions are expected to focus on advancing the India-U.S. trade agreement and exploring ways to deepen bilateral ties. The Vance family is staying at the ITC Maurya Sheraton in New Delhi and will later travel to Jaipur, where they will stay at the Rambagh Palace, that is a former royal residence. On April 22nd, the Vance family is visiting famous sites in Jaipur, including Amer Fort, and Vice President is also slated to speak at the Rajasthan International Center on India-U.S. relations under the Trump administration. On April 23rd, the Vances will travel to Agra to visit the iconic Taj Mahal and Shubhgram, that is an open-air market showcasing Indian art and craft. Now, they are scheduled to return to Jaipur later that evening and fly back to the U.S. on April 24th. Meanwhile, there is an air of excitement in the village of Vadluru in Andhra Pradesh, which is the ancestral home of Usha Vance, the Second Lady of the United States.
Around 80 years ago, they had lived in the village for 50 years before leaving. Usha Chilukuri's grandfather, Ram Sastry, was a well-educated and respected priest. He used to share stories from history and Hindu mythology, and all the villagers would gain knowledge from him.
With growing global tensions, particularly in the U.S.-China trade war, the visit is crucial as both nations seek to solidify their partnership in the Indo-Pacific region. This visit underscores the strengthening of ties between the U.S. and India, with both countries aiming to increase bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030. For the latest, WION's assistant editor for foreign affairs, Siddhant Sibul, has sent us this report. Listen in.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance arrived in India later today. Today, he will be in Delhi and he will be meeting the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Also, he will be going to Akshardham Temple. Now, essentially, we know he's on a 4-day visit where he also travels to Jaipur and Agra. His address in Jaipur will be closely watched and will be seen as a key policy statement of the Trump administration. Now, we know that he's the second top Trump official to be in India after the DNI chief Tulsi Gabbard last month. And we know that the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Washington in the month of February. Later this year, the US President Donald Trump is expected to be in India for the Quad Summit. We know that India-US relationship have been a very substantive relationship. Of course, there are issues as well, particularly the trade issue. Both sides are now working on the trade agreement, hoping that it will be concluded by September. We also know that the trade teams are negotiating almost on a weekly basis to chalk out the trade pact. But there are other domains like defense, like space, and of course, people-to-people relationship that form the bedrock of this important relationship.